There's a quote on the Wikipedia page for Ace Attorney's Mia Fey, which calls her compassionate, dedicated, and hyper-competent. And I think it's almost completely incorrect. Now, don't get me wrong, I love Mia, she's one of my favourite characters from the series, but I think this is a misreading of her. More importantly, I think it really misunderstands something that the series is trying to say about perseverance and bravery, which is important to me because I love these games and they've had a really big impact on my life. And also because I'm the one who wrote it. If you haven't played the Ace Attorney games, I'm gonna spoil something that happens 30 minutes in, and then some of the general structure of the third game. I don't think it'll affect your enjoyment, but if you do think it's gonna bother you, then go and play the games. I don't even mind if you don't come back, you've just gotta go play the games, they rule. Mia is the second character that we get introduced to in the series, the first obviously being Phoenix Wright, our protagonist. Phoenix's first line is, "Boy am I nervous," which is perfect because he's this rookie lawyer suddenly tossed into this world where he has to save people from being imprisoned or even killed for crimes they didn't commit. It's a huge important job and this is his very first case trying to defend someone, and it's someone who means a lot to him. He's wrestling with how much responsibility is suddenly on his shoulders, as well as the fact that the entire system is rigged and fundamentally unjust. He knows from the start that this injustice is something he can only attempt to tackle in some small way. And he's just so unequipped for it. Mia, his mentor, shows up and her first introduction is being like, "So you really wanted to take on a murder trial right off the bat?" Seems a little optimistic, but okay, let's teach you the very basics of being in court, which is a really straightforward and sensible way of tying together the fact that the player needs a tutorial to learn how to play the game, and giving characterization to Phoenix, a lawyer who's fresh from the bar exam and has never been in a real trial. The problem is that I played these games when I was 12, which is just the prime time for imprinting on a piece of media like a duckling, and I became specifically obsessed with Mia Fey. That piece that I wrote that was quoted on Wikipedia was one I wrote for Eurogame in 2019, where I talked about how I wanted to become a lawyer for a full 10 years. And not in a cute kids way, but in a I did work experience at a court multiple times kind of way. But the thing is that I didn't want to be a lawyer, I wanted to literally be Mia Fey. Is this what kinning is? No, I'm 27, we can't get into this. Anyway, I want to clarify that I didn't put this on Wikipedia. I'm quoted on there a few times, usually just because the publication that I'm writing for lends credence to some kind of fact that I just put in a news story. And a few times as a critic, which does feel weird, but like that is my job, so it kind of makes sense if I've got something to say. But this is literally just me talking about how much I wanted to become Mia Fey. Which is very funny because there's no critical analysis there whatsoever. It's literally just like, oh, you want to know something about a character in this game that sold 8 million copies? Yeah, this weirdo called Jay Costello is in way too deep. But it doesn't even capture the degree to which this became a fundamental goal in my life. So I want to tell you about two things that will hopefully make it clear. Firstly, when I was 14, my parents got me a figurine of her, which is fairly normal, but I loved it so much that I took it to do a photo shoot in the park. I also used to hook her onto a chain by tucking it under her hair so that I could wear it as a good luck charm under my school uniform, and I eventually did that so much that her head fell off and I had to glue it back on. Here she is! There's no way that focused. Anyway, I used to have two of them because my parents knew that I would be devastated if I lost this one, and then I lost the second one. Luckily I managed to keep the original, but sorry to them for somehow getting rid of their present that they got me. I will say that my mom always said these would become like super rare collectibles, and I just looked it up and you can buy this on eBay for £17 and 12 pence, so like, not so sure about that. Maybe I should get another one. Anyway, the second thing is that I also kept saying I was gonna change my name literally just to Mia Fey. And then when I actually did change my name, I had these really specific criteria which Mia didn't fit into, so as you can see, I didn't do that. But somebody had taken the Twitter handle and the email address that were just Jay Costello, so I had to give myself a middle name, which I've never had before. My parents just didn't bother with them for some reason. And that's what the M stands for at my Twitter handle, just in case you thought I wasn't still obsessed. Anyway, believe it or not, this is not a video about how cringe I am. The first case of Ace Attorney lasts 30 minutes. At the beginning of the second case, Mia Fey is murdered. And she's kind of still around because there are spirit mediums in this game, but pretty much this entire obsession I've nurtured for 15 years came from that first 30 minutes, which bear in mind isn't even about her. They also have to introduce Phoenix, his friend Larry, the court system, the gameplay mechanics, and a bunch of the themes. I replayed it recently and it really is not just an introduction to that game, but so much of what goes into the rest of the series, which has now been running for 20 years. So it has a lot to fit in there. It only has time to give Mia the absolute broadest strokes, and from that, compassionate, dedicated, and hyper-competent is not such a bad read. But for the rest of the game, she's only around in very specific moments, so we mostly get a lot more character development for Phoenix. One thing remains the same: he extremely doesn't know what he's doing. I cannot stress this enough, that man is a disaster. And now he doesn't have anyone to guide him through it. In the second case, Mia's sister Maya is accused of murder, and she says that Mia told her Phoenix is a genius, but he needs 3 years of experience before she can trust him as a lawyer. Which in hindsight, given that the Ace Attorney trilogy spans 3 years and Phoenix remains bumbling throughout, it's pretty accurate. But he is compassionate and dedicated, possibly more than Mia is. He's certainly more patient. In the first case, she keeps saying she's gonna leave if Phoenix doesn't pull himself together, which would stress me the hell out for sure. It's not a super kind thing to do. Whereas Phoenix, like his whole career, is basically dedicated to helping his childhood friends, and he's gonna drag everyone else up with him too. His whole thing is seeing someone who doesn't have support and being there for them. He's a great dude. If you're looking for someone who's compassionate and dedicated, there's no reason you would latch onto the woman who died half an hour into the game instead of him. So really what it comes down to is this word hyper-competent, which is firstly a wildly bad piece of writing. Like, what does it even mean? I was obviously reaching for like basically flawless, but then I guess hustle culture just came out of left field and completely blindsided me. I looked it up while writing this script, and the definition when referring to a person was efficient and capable. And I don't think that the word actually suggests efficiency at all, but that sure is something that we value in this culture. And Google was also like, did you want to find results relating to human resources? Like, competency doesn't just mean produces a lot of surplus profit under capitalism, but it sure feels like it does, you know? And then I added hyper to it for no reason, so I just sound like a Silicon Valley startup tech bro. Regardless, whatever hyper-competent means, Phoenix is not it. Literally, his most remarked upon character trait is that he bluffs 24/7 and no one knows how it works out for him. He is scraping by on luck and vibes alone. Which, at 27 years old, is relatable as hell, right? Of course he is. We all are. If we're talking about fictional role models, Phoenix is a really meaningful portrayal of the power of perseverance and of leaning on your friends and of just straight up not always succeeding and having to pick yourself back up after that. But if you're a tween teacher's pet with wildly grand ambitions, it makes sense to latch onto someone who seems really good at what they do. The thing is, Mia Fey is not that. So, in the third game, you get to play as her. There's a series of flashbacks that show us what she's actually like in the courtroom, her process, her thoughts, basically how the most impressive lawyer in the series cuts through it all to find the truth and protect people and take down massively corrupt organizations. And she doesn't know what she's doing. There's no part of this game where the reading of hyper-competent makes sense. The first time Mia goes into a courtroom, someone dies, and it's not entirely or even mostly her fault, but her whole arc in the third game hinges on that failure and her reaction to it, in the same way that Phoenix has to constantly learn to fail and stand back up. It's the same theme. She even has a callback where the opening line in the third game is her saying, "I'm kind of nervous." She's positioned in the same way that Phoenix is in the first game. Her own mentor shows up and calls her out on it in quite a mean way. She doesn't know how to cross-examine a witness or present evidence. Obviously, all of this is structurally for the same reasons that she appeared as a mentor in the first game. There has to be a tutorial case to teach people how to play. But thematically, it hammers home a really important message that Ace Attorney has always relied on. Competence is not the goal. If you want anything, you have to muddle through. So, I'll throw my hands up. I was completely wrong. And that Wikipedia page has been viewed like 12,000 times since that quote got added. I have lied to so many people. And if it was funny to me before that my obsession is somehow one of the most newsworthy things about her, it's now even funnier that that obsession meant that I just did an objectively bad job at reading her character. The fact that I wrote hypercompetent, whatever that even means, is just because I so badly wanted to be that. It completely overwrote my ability to hear what the text was actually saying about how that's not an achievable or even really a desirable goal. I really hope it doesn't get removed because of this video. Although I guess that would also be really funny, just like turning her whole Wikipedia page into the Jay Costello has opinions cinematic universe. But aside from just personally amusing me greatly and once again reminding me what a weird job I have, figuring this out has been really freeing. These games still mean a lot to me, and I've been wanting to try some new things, but I've been scared to do it because I didn't already know how, which means I never got to learn and I got into this big cycle. Which is just not very Mia Fey of me. So as you might have guessed, one of the things that I really want to start doing is making video essays. So this is all just really a meta commentary on that. And also a really good excuse for why there's mistakes in this video and inevitably future videos. It's all part of my thematic exploration. But to be cheesy and earnest for a minute, because it's Ace Attorney and I can't talk about these games without being it, I hope that you'll make something badly too. It's so easy to get paralyzed, but then how are you gonna be the hot bisexual girl boss mentor that your tween self needed? And also get tragically fridged in the first act?